Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast with me, Dom DiTolla.
And me, Chris Quinn.
All right. We got an awesome set of episodes here to come out today. You want to dive right in?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
All right. Excellent. First subject today, since we haven't done the sport yet, boxing, Mr. Andrew Golota.
Yeah, and before we get into Mr. Golota, we were talking about this earlier. We're both never really got into boxing.
No.
Yeah, I never grew up watching it, or, it wasn't one of those sports that was always on in my house like all the other ones. So
Yeah, for me growing up, it was always baseball, football, and hockey. That was it. Those were kind of the big three, kind of in that order as well. Like, I never really got into boxing, but I do have friends, specifically give a shout out to one of our great listeners, Elias McCollish. He, big boxing nut, and he likes our podcast and said, hey, I think I got a guy who would be perfect for you guys to do. And boy, was he right.
Yeah, exactly. And mentioning that, if anybody has any of these sports stories that you want us to go over, shoot us an email at the sportsexperiencepodcast@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there's a treasure trove of athletes out there that we, know, which is why we're doing these episodes. But if you would like to hear us research and talk about them and, you're all geeked up about it, please, seriously, plenty of ideas out there.
Yeah, shoot us an email. But without any more ado, let's get into Golota, because this was one I knew nothing about and I had a great time researching him. He was wild.
This guy is like a bipolar Ivan Drago, I guess is the best way to put it.
I like that. All right, so born in the Soviet Union, so that's a perfect connection.
January 5th, 1963 in Warsaw, Poland.
Warsaw.
Yeah, which is Eastern Bloc country at that time.
Yep.
Grew up in the ghetto of Warsaw, which is like, my God, this guy, wow.
Yeah, well, he said he grew up fighting all the time.
Yeah.
And once he finally grew some size, kids started leaving him alone, because he really became a heavyweight. Like he was like 6'3", 200 pounds when he was like 18, 19. So
yeah, I mean he's like what you would think of when you want to make a heavyweight boxer in a lab.
Yes.
Like Drago in Rocky IV.
Yes,
you know
completely
what I mean?
lean. He wasn't like overweight. He was,
Yeah, just constructed body type perfect for it.
Yes.
Because, by the time he was in his prime, he was like 6'4", close to about 240.
Yeah.
So, just exactly what you'd want.
Well, in the beginning of his career, he was an amateur Olympic boxer. He got a bronze medal in the 88 Olympics.
Yeah, over in Seoul, he did, going about his business, whomping people. He had 111 wins as an amateur.
Yeah, he was really knocking people out even back then. That's something throughout his whole career, that he was a knockout specialist. He really had power.
Yeah, he had power, and we'll get into it probably later, some issues regarding other things.
I would say control.
Yeah, control. Control.
It's an interesting one. Well,
control and drive and effort and things like that.
Oh, a bunch of it. Well, so he was the bronze medalist, and then he was still an amateur boxer, but he didn't turn professional, and then he kind of got some trouble in Poland.
Yeah, getting in trouble. It's like Midnight Express almost.
Yes. Oh, my God.
So in 1990, the guy's in his early 20s, boxing king. He gets into a bar fight in Poland.
And I was trying to research this. I couldn't just figure out, because somebody said that he got into a bar fight with a cop.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out exactly the details of it. The only thing that I could figure out was that he knocked this guy completely cold.
Yeah, completely just destroyed this guy. And I would think more or less that he got into a fight with a cop and not just like some regular barfly, because immediately after he fled Poland.
Well, that's what they say, is he went to America not to become a professional boxer, but to literally stave jail time in Poland, because they were saying they were going to give him 5 years.
And 5 years in a Polish jail just sounds
scary.
Yeah, American jail is scary enough.
Yes.
I have no idea what goes inside early 90s post-communist Poland jail.
It's it's hard to even comprehend because I bet it's just a cold, scary place.
It's like a gulag with butt sex.
Oh my God.
Kind of what I assume Polish jail is at that time.
You think the butt sex translates across countries like that, across cultures?
I mean, if it's that bad and you need it, I assume, you assume. Yeah. A lot of hardcore Polish mob probably in where he's going.
Yes.
And, very, very scary things. Very scary.
So he moves to America. This is something I found extremely interesting. He didn't go professional right away. He actually became a truck driver and didn't really think he was going to go professional.
Yeah, I don't think boxing, and part of the reason I think why he never rose to the complete top was boxing never meant that much to him. You get that vibe is that boxing wasn't his. Like you listen to an interview with Evander Holyfield, one which Elias sent me, which is fantastic. You could tell that like boxing is what drove this guy.
Yes.
Golota's like, I don't want to spend time in a Polish jail. And he moved to Chicago. And the reason he moved to Chicago is because they have the highest Polish descent population outside of Poland.
Yes.
So goes there, marries a woman, wants to be a truck driver. I mean, he just wants to get out of his previous lifestyle as opposed to, yeah.
Well, they said the first gym that he went to after living in America for a couple of months, he ended up like sparring with a guy. And when you spar with a guy, you're not supposed to go 100%. He knocked him out right away.
Oh, obviously.
Somebody else jumped in the ring and was yelling at him. He knocked him out. And as they were leaving, he knocked out another guy. And they had to call the police. And he was going to get arrested, but they ended up letting him go. But it's like one of these things where it's like you could see this guy had problems, and then you start with these stories where it's like, well, the first boxing gym he went to in America, he just started knocking people out.
I would like to take classes.
Like literally, it's like, do you want to spar? Like, yeah, let's spar. Like, let's go a couple of rounds. He literally went full blown crazy person.
Oh my God. You could kind of tell from that though that it like the light bulb went off. He was like, I can get what I want by doing this, even though it's not the most important thing to me.
Yes.
Because he's just that good.
Yes. That was something that he said was he could make money off these fights, off of fighting that he could never make in a regular life.
Oh, yeah. And then 92, he gets training, turns pro. I believe he beats Roosevelt Silver in the third round in his first professional fight. And then he won 19 more in a row.
Yeah. So he goes on like a 16 knockout streak in that 19-0. And like, so people are really looking at him like, oh, this guy's coming up. This guy has all the tools. And he's really laying people down.
Yeah. And he's keeping, that crazy town part of his brain in check.
Yes.
Until a specific fight where he goes Tyson before Tyson.
And this was a small fight, not a big one. But how do you pronounce this guy's name?
I believe it's Polynesian, so it's Samson Pahua.
Pahua. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So Pahua in this fight is starting to win a little. So that's
roughing him up.
Yes.
And Golota kind of doesn't have. That's the other thing I kind of, watching his fights and kind of seeing him talk is, in the very limited interviews is like, he doesn't have that dog in him in the ring, Like he doesn't have that dog in him when things aren't going his way to really like take it to an extra gear.
Yeah, when he's backed into a corner, he's not going to, he almost like whimpers away.
Yeah, he doesn't, when he gets frustrated, he doesn't go, what can I do to make this better? He just goes to crazy town.
What can I do to make this worse?
Yeah. What can I do to set this dumpster fire even more ablaze?
Exactly.
And he's getting sick of this guy roughing him up, kind of headbutting him. So he bites him in the neck vampire style.
And it's like a big chunk he tries to take out. Like, it's not like a little tiny bite. You're like, whoa, what'd he do? You're like, holy shit. He like, ah.
It's not like some Victorian era British woman with tea and crumpets like nibbling. This is like legit Nosferatu, like, ah.
And you see the boxer's like, whoa. Like, he has a reaction of just like, what is happening? And I feel like the ref not being ready for that, because why would you be ready for it? But the ref was kind of like, okay, keep going, guys.
Just like, did I just see, like, imagine being the ref going home after that. Like, hey honey, how was your day? Well, let me tell you what I just saw.
Yeah, I think a guy bit a guy, but it was so quick. I don't know.
I saw a muscular Pollock just go after someone.
Well, he ends up winning this fight.
He does.
So
he does.
People kind of say that this is him kind of what happens to him when he starts to lose a fight is he kind of loses his shit. But he could still obviously is a great contender in this heavyweight division. That is like, this is when the heavyweight division started to come back.
Yeah.
And be, you know.
Yeah, I know. And he had ran his record to 28-0.
Yeah.
From 92 to 96, he won his first 28 fights, which is just unbelievable. Just mowing down the competition. So he's thinking, so like people in boxing are starting to think like, this is a legitimate contender. Let's put him up against somebody who was a former heavyweight champion of the world in Riddick Bowe in 1996.
This is probably his most interesting, because the biting, when we first started to get into it, I was like, whoa, I want to look that up. It went all to the Riddick Bowe fights and the fights that were after that, because this is the one where he shows what a great fighter he is and what a lunatic he is.
Yeah, what an absolutely insane and I feel a kindred spirit, not necessarily like with the biting, but I've always been the type of guy who just like, because of mental issues and my own personal shit, even when things are going right, I'll always find a way to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Like,
you start wondering why. You're like, why is everything going so right?
I'm like, oh no, I feel for this guy in a small way. I mean, he's an idiot, but like, I feel for this guy.
No, I agree. He's donkey brained, but I gotta
donkey brained.
I gotta feel for him. Well, that's the thing. Going into this Riddick Bowe fight, Riddick Bowe just beat Evander Holyfield, and going into this fight,
it was like a tune-up for Bowe, but also to showcase Golota.
Bowe was talking a lot of shit.
Yeah, Bowe, here, I have the quote written down here.
Yeah.
Bowe said, they were asking him, how are you going to train to face Golota, you know? And he said, I don't know, how do you train for a bum?
Exactly.
And I can guarantee you, somebody like Golota, who seems to be kind of a Sally sensitive deep down inside, probably heard that and said, oh, this motherfucker's gonna, he's like Drago, like, I must break you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you hear these guys kind of talk shit before a fight, and sometimes it's fake, and sometimes the indifference that they show a fighter is even worse. And that's what I felt like he did. He's just like, I don't care about that fighter.
Yeah, like he could have talked mad crap about Golota, probably, and if he had probably done this and just said like, I don't know, who has he faced, like,
yeah,
you know, let's see him under the big stage, Golota probably would have ignored that.
Yep.
I bet you he would have. He would have been like, oh, this is just part of, you know, the back and forth. But because he said stuff like that, the groundwork was laid for something bizarre and insane to happen if things started going Golota's way.
And right off the bat, he just starts lighting him up. So people say that Riddick Bowe came into this fight very undertrained.
Yeah, and Bowe was notoriously, I found out from talking to Elias and then researching it, Bowe was a really great fighter as a light heavyweight and a heavyweight, but he never, almost like Golota, once he reached the top, his training just went to crap. Like his drive, like he would train hard enough to get to the mountaintop.
And then couldn't stay.
Yeah, and not hard enough to maintain it. So he was thinking like this will be a walk in the park. And Golota went out and just started lighting him up. With
some great combos. That's something that people say when they were watching Golota was his speed and his combos in addition to his power is what made him such a great fighter. And you watch those first like 3 or 4 rounds and he is just absolutely lighting him up.
And the funny thing is, I mean, about this fight, just to add like some context. So it's at Madison Square Garden and half of the crowd is Polish.
Yes.
People of Polish descent. And they're excited because there's never been a Polish fighter this good really ever before.
Yep. And this is his first match on the world stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other half of the crowd is African-American like Bowe.
Yes.
And it's pretty heated pre-fight.
Yes.
As far as
a lot of fans talking shit, a lot of energy in the arena.
Yeah. Just a lot of negative energy.
A lot of negative. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Very much so.
We'll put it that way.
Yes. I bet there was a lot of racism with the fans. Like, I'm just saying.
And yeah, by the seventh round of this fight, Golota's cruising. I mean, he's looking like not only a heavyweight contender, he's looking like somebody who could take the heavyweight championship in a couple of years.
Yes.
I mean, just really sticking it to Bowe, but he starts running into some issues, not with Bowe, but the referees.
And himself.
Well, and himself, his own crazy self.
He's winning the fight so much that if Bowe didn't knock him out, he wouldn't lose. Like if Bowe went on and won the next 3 or 4 rounds, he still probably would have won the fight.
Yeah, if he just kind of stayed away.
Yes, if he just
kind of
kept his
fought
distance.
His own fight.
Yes.
And, maybe the last couple of rounds played possum and maybe lost a point,
here or there, or even a round here or there. But
yeah, no, he was that ahead, but he kept. And I'll go with the Simpsons reference here for the greatest Springfield film ever made. Football in the groining him with his fist.
Yes.
I mean,
the first 2 looked like they could be accidents, but when you're a precise boxer like they are, those are not accidents.
No, and his corner, you would see him going back, and they're like, stop hitting him below the belt.
Yes, and then because I think he did it 4 times, 3 and 4 were so bad below the belt.
And the ref was warning him, too. It's not like it came out of the blue. The ref was like, I'm taking a point away.
Yes.
He's like, next time this happens, you're out.
Yes.
Football in the groin had football in the groin, but Golota Bowe, number 1, had Golota's fist in Bowe's groin.
You were saying his knuckles were down by his knees when we were talking about it earlier.
No, I mean, this isn't like, he missed.
Yes, it was not that.
Because like in the heat of the moment, I can see that. Even though these guys are professionals, like you're tired, your brain is probably somewhere else at that point being turned into mush. Like if you hit a guy accidentally below the belt because you're trying to work the body so he brings his guard down, I get it. Like, and if the ref tells you he's taking a point away, to a normal person, that would be enough of a warning to go, okay. And if you're winning the fight that substantially,
you're going to back off.
You're just going to be, okay, well, just get some jabs in there and keep this puppy rolling. And if I don't knock him out, I'm going to win him, because if he doesn't knock me out, good for me.
Not Golota. Golota went in to destroy his genitals.
And, oh my God. Hey everybody, just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs. It was so bad that 37 seconds left in that 7th round, he laid one on his balls that looked so blatant.
It was, completely blatant. It dropped him so fast that mayhem ensued.
Yeah, like I wish somebody had dubbed, sorry to go with it on the Simpsons track again, but that little dink, like when the ball hits Molman in the nuts, they just dub it on that last punch.
Oh man,
dude, Bowe hits, and Bowe's a tough guy.
Oh, absolutely.
But your junk as a man, even the slightest thing can take you down.
And that was 4 full-on uppercuts to the junk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like these are like hard punches. So Riddick Bowe's corner essentially jumps in and attacks Golota.
And they attack Golota, and one of the guys, like his main trainer, starts attacking him. Another guy, because his arms are being held, starts hitting him in the head, like tomahawking him. And not only does that happen, all the rage and anger from the crowd turns into like a soccer riot.
They say that in the audience, it was essentially like a riot.
Yeah, and like almost a full-on race war.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
yes.
It was like watching it, it's disturbing in a way.
Yes.
Like,
disturbing when Golota's 74-year-old manager or trainer, I forget which one, I believe he had a heart attack.
Yeah, and they're like wheeling him out, and they're doing it very poorly because they have to get him up the steps of Madison Square Garden out to the ambulance.
And Riddick Bowe and him actually shared a room.
Oh, no way.
One of those nice little tidbits,
I feel like I'd rather have a heart attack than take the pounding that Bowe's nuts took in that first fight.
Oh, man. And you know what? That just preempts the second fight.
Yeah,
a couple of months later, everybody's talking shit about how Golota.
The first one was July 11th, 96.
Yes.
They set up a second one December 14th, 1996.
Well, there was so much shit being talked about Golota being able to destroy him, and Riddick Bowe was coming out saying, like, I didn't even train for this fight. Let me train.
Yeah.
And he ends up training, but I watched this thing, and it's something that you don't really think about with boxing. He lost a bunch of weight really quick. And people say he lost a bunch of power because he lost too much weight too quickly. And it's something you don't really think about, but they say he dropped like 30 pounds.
He looked in far better physical condition for that second fight.
Yes.
But you know what? It didn't matter.
No. And that's the thing is he came out, and I think that his corner or his side was like, we're going to come out and we're going to match his speed and he's a better boxer. No. Golota was so much better both fights.
And Golota, much like fight number one, starts taking it to him and starts taking it to his nuts.
Well, I think it was round two.
Yeah, but did you see that?
Headbutts him.
Yeah. Did you see that training video, though, of before how his trainer put a pair of boxing trunks on the heavy bag to make sure that he doesn't hit him in the nuts?
No, I didn't see that. That's great.
Don't go below the trunks. It was so funny, but you knew it was going to happen.
And you knew that it was purposeful. That's the thing. He hated him. And something about Golota's personality.
Yeah, like he's one of those guys who, like, he'll hate you right off the bat for no apparent reason.
Well, I want to get into this because I watched a video on it, and this is the era for it. He had a bunch of back knee. He had a bunch of back acne.
Oh, yeah.
And that indicates steroids.
Yeah.
And he had it for multiple fights, and people say that's where his insanity might have came from.
But he didn't even need it.
Not at all.
And that's what makes it even more tragic.
I feel like that's the era of these guys who didn't need it, but then still took it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I hear you.
It's an interesting one because you'll never get. We won't really hear his side of the story.
No, he'll never talk about it.
No, he's not that kind of guy. But let's get back to that second Riddick Bowe
fight.
To
that second fight. First couple of rounds, it's going Golota's way all over again.
But then Riddick Bowe kind of opens up. If you watch that fight, I think round 4, he really starts laying into him. And I think what Bowe really realized was he had to swing for the fences and not try and box him and just try and knock him out.
He's going to have to knock him out because he's not going to win on points. He's just being outboxed.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so he opens up his left eye or his right eye.
Yeah.
I forget which one. But he opens him up and he keeps trying to punish that side.
Yeah.
And that pisses Golota off. And you could see
greatly,
You could see him getting frustrated and angry with the way the fight is going.
And you can see, even though Golota's winning, you can see after that the air raid red siren going off in his head, saying, "Open season on your balls, friend."
Well, he hits him once below the belt, and the ref gives him a warning.
Yeah.
And then the next round, I believe, he comes out and gives his balls the greatest ball combo I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, man, like, this is something that it's great, like, from a technique standpoint.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're just not allowed to hit someone there.
Well, when somebody hits below the belt, it's one shot. And that's how you know it's an accident. It's just like one, boop. Yeah. You're just like, damn. He literally hit him 3, boop, 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 right? And it's like his dick is flopping back and forth. And it's just like the ref goes, and it's just like, that's it. You're done. And that's when, I mean, pretty much boxing kind of turned their back on him. But he had such a name.
Yeah, like, you don't want to be known as the guy that punches people in the nuts.
Yeah, you don't want to be known as the guy that constantly gets disqualified.
Yeah, and that kind of really tarnished him, but he was still so good.
Well, that's what everyone said with the 13 rounds before he got disqualified in both fights, you know what I mean? 7 in the first, 6 in the second or whatever. He was dominating.
Yeah.
Not just winning, he was dominating.
Like you don't understand that. It's like a guy who's pitching like a no-hitter into the 7th inning and then just says, I don't like this guy, so I'm going to hit him and put him on base. I don't like this guy, so I'm going to hit him and put him on base. And he just starts walking and runs by beaning guys.
Yep. And then he just starts balking.
Yeah, right.
Just like you're just like, what is happening right now?
You're screwing it up.
Yeah. It's so interesting. But then his career isn't even like done with the interesting stuff. He has like 3 or 4 more interesting fights.
No, I mean he fought Lennox Lewis in October of '97, October 4th for the WCB or WBC title.
And this is something I thought was interesting was he got shots of let me look it
lidocaine.
Lidocaine for tendonitis
in his knees.
And sometimes that causes blurry vision.
Yeah.
And he says that he was completely unable to see he completely didn't have depth perception.
Yeah, which you kind of need in boxing.
If you look at that fight, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, he filed the $21 million med mal suit against the guy that shot him up.
Yes.
I mean, because you can tell he was a little off. I don't know, in a court of law, I don't know if you can attribute it to the lidocaine,
but you can tell he was off.
It certainly didn't help.
Lennox Lewis came in, and it was almost like he couldn't defend his punches, which is crazy for a heavyweight.
And he knocked him out in the first round.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That fight I thought was really interesting because he almost didn't even box, if that makes sense. Like, he didn't even, like, get started.
How much do you think Lennox Lewis went home that night and was like, oh, thank God for that lidocaine?
Oh, man. Because that could have been Lennox Lewis losing and not... I mean, that could have been Golota being,
That could have been Lennox, not even losing his title or losing the title, but Lennox Lewis losing a testicle.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that's true.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Because Lennox Lewis is fantastic. He probably would have beat him.
Yeah, that's true.
And if he's beating him in like round 5 and Golota goes to Crazy Town, I don't know.
Yeah, Avita's into your nuts.
Yeah, right.
I mean, jeez. But
Glorious bastards. I love that.
I know. But it's such an interesting thing because he just can't catch a break and he can't create one for himself. Like you were saying, like every time it starts to go great or it starts to go right, either he messes it up or something gets messed up for him.
Yeah, and then he's still in contention because he's so good. Like, people want to keep giving him chances. Like, November 20th, 1999, he fights Michael Grant for the NABF title. Obviously loses, but between that, he won his next 6 fights.
Yes.
After the Lewis debacle. Like, you keep giving him chances, and you're like, maybe he's turned the corner, and then whoop.
It seems like the fights on the big stage, he can't handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he doesn't have that dog in him to be like, all right, I just have to keep my shit together for the next hour.
Yeah, he's got the Billy Bean in him. He can't take that loss.
Yeah, and he gets into his own head, but instead of just like privately sulking, he publicly punches people in the dick.
Exactly. And then he fights Mike Tyson.
Yes, he does.
I think this is his
following year, 2000, yeah.
Last big fight. And I saw something that was interesting. A couple of Boston guys were talking about it. And it's so weird when you find these weird-ass videos online. But they were talking about the mob's involvement in boxing at that time and Golota possibly taking a dive during that fight. Because
he very well could have.
He got knocked down in round 2 and then didn't come out for round 3.
Yeah.
And if you talk to anybody in his camp, they said it was the weirdest interaction with him where he was just like, nah, I can't go out. And they're like, what do you mean you can't go out? You're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those weird boxing interactions where maybe the mob was involved in that one.
Possibly. I mean, Tyson was disqualified eventually later for failing a drug test.
For failing for weed.
Yeah, which, let me tell you, weed is not a drug. Weed is a mystical item that makes you feel good.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling good.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's one of those things where it's not performance enhancing. It's not like, that's the stupidest part of disqualifying him, but I don't even know why they would be testing him for it. But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you be testing him for steroids or anything else?
But they weren't at that time.
I feel like weed would make Mike Tyson more docile, which is kind of the Tyson you want.
I know.
Like
Tyson's a scary man.
Everyone's like, oh, he bit someone, he's pulling a Tyson. No, Tyson pulled a Golota after he fought Holyfield.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Come on, man. Let's give the credit where it's due.
They should have allowed in that fight biting. Just said, all right, boys, biting is included.
The Golota Tyson bite off.
Oh man, that blood would have looked like the elevators from The Shining after that one.
Jesus.
I'm gonna eat your children. Come on, Andrew. Chow down.
I don't think anybody's scarier and been more made fun of more than Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I would never do that to Mike Tyson. I fear that man so much.
It's such a weird thing. Like, we're not going around like making fun of serial killers, but with Mike Tyson, like, he literally could be.
Which is hilarious because he's so much more dangerous.
Yes, he is.
And he could probably get away with it more than a serial killer because you would threaten him, he'd claim self-defense and walk.
Yeah. I heard he's training for a fight right now. Did you hear that?
Yeah, Elias was telling me about that actually, and I'm kind of intrigued, honestly, because I've seen like interviews with him recently, and I don't know if his muscle gain is on the level in terms of legality, but he is straight jacked for a dude in his 50s.
Straight jacked, and he looks like he has the speed and all of that.
Yeah,
he has his own weed too.
Yeah. It's good for you, Mike.
Good for you, Mike.
So happy, Mike.
Exactly.
Back to Golota, though.
Yes.
Back to Golota. After that Tyson fight, though, he took 3 years off.
Yes.
He took 3 years off to do whatever it is. Guy from Poland fleeing prison time and being a good professional boxer would.
I was going to say, it seems like he probably was doing illicit things in that time with what happens later in his life. It can't be... He definitely didn't take it off to like start training kids in boxing, if that makes sense. You know, like he definitely took those 3 years off and was like maybe dealing drugs, maybe doing some. I mean, who knows, man? Yeah,
no, I mean, he definitely comes back. He had a draw with Chris Bird in 2004, lost unanimous decision to John Ruiz in 2004. And then he has a WBO title against Lamont Brewster in 2005, and he was technical knockout in the, I believe, 11th round, but he was heavily favored too in that.
Yeah,
and he just couldn't get it done.
Couldn't get over the hump.
And it's so sad because of how good he truly was.
Yeah, he had all the potential, and I feel like he wasted his prime, especially.
Oh yeah, yeah,
with those nut shots.
I mean, he won a vacant IBF title against Kevin McBride in 2007.
Yeah.
And, just couldn't really get over the hump as far as what he could have been.
Yeah.
It's like the story of what could have happened, and he just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then, it's sad.
And then post-career.
Yes, post-career.
He got arrested for... impersonating a police officer.
Yeah, you want to get into that?
Well, this is kind of interesting. So post-career, it just seems like his life got into just where some of these boxers might go is like running security for bad people and that kind of stuff. It's a weird...
or like just being a bouncer for like an exclusive casino and glad handing and, just... something to be a big guy and keep your face out there, you know, that type of deal.
Possibly working with the mafia.
Yeah, possibly working with the mafia.
I'm just saying, these are all mob jobs.
Yeah. I mean, breaking legs, fingers, that type of deal. But impersonating a cop, didn't you say he had a bunch of weapons in the car?
I think he had 3 unregistered firearms and then a couple registered ones.
Oh, my God.
So, like, he was pretty much doing what you think these guys are going to do, which sucks to say.
Yeah.
Then he gets deported back to Poland.
Yeah.
And is extremely scared that he's going to go to prison.
Yeah.
But gets back to Poland and they pretty much celebrate him like a hero.
Yeah. I mean, which is crazy to think. Like, the guy that threw it all away is still celebrated as a hero because he got out.
Because he got out and he kind of had some bigger fights and, you know, he had some popularity. But I found it interesting that his disconnect with his home was so much that when he went home, he was like, shit, am I going to be arrested? And they were like, no, we love you. Like he was on the Poland version of Dancing with the Stars.
Even better.
Yes.
Like did he
not shot? No, they had him dance with a woman. I knew where you were going.
No. I was going to ask, did he headbutt right to the ovaries, Ron Burgundy style, that poor dancing partner?
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, I'm just saying he lived and he's still alive. He's living quite an interesting life, you know, like escaped Poland.
Which I give him credit for because like his life could have gone in a completely other crappy direction. And just the fact that he's like alive and not punch drunk and can have some semblance of normalcy, particularly with that upbringing in, you know, that type of era of Poland.
Yeah.
To be like just a functioning member of society, that should be celebrated. Like, and as many jokes as we're making, that should be celebrated, but you always have that question of what if.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody says is he had the potential and he kind of squandered it.
Yeah, which is almost tragic in a way for someone to do that.
Yeah.
But we love you, Andrew Golota.
Yeah, I was going to say
you, sir.
What a great research and great boxing. I was really into the boxing we watched.
Right? Yeah.
The heavyweight boxing in the 90s and early 2000s is probably some of the best. I know what people say Ali, but that's not what I grew up seeing.
Yeah.
You know. It's one of those things.
But no, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and thank you again, Elias, for bringing this gentleman to our attention.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to that podcast. This is just a stock message at the end of all of our podcasts, so we hope you enjoy. You listen to whatever athlete that was. Give us a follow at the Sports Experience Podcast on Instagram. Also, myself at Quinn Comedy on Instagram. Also, DiTolla Dominic on Instagram. Just follow us all around. If you have any suggestions for any athletes you want us to do, shoot us an email at the Sports Experience Podcast at gmail.com. And we always are recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.